This will be the final reading from the story from Fearsome Magics, edited by Jonathan Strawn. As I said, I think you can still get some copies from Jonathan online. The story in it is called Grigori's Solution, and this is the final part of it. Sorry, cleaning my glasses. Okay. I have seen the little Asian man several times since, hurrying up or down the steps, always wearing his thin dark suit, looking anxious and harried. I do not know where he goes each day, so early in such a hurry, but sometimes he does not return until the following morning. He is alone in his purposefulness, however. Others move slowly, as if through water, lost in thought. Sometimes there is sadness in their faces, for of course most of them are far from the homes and loved ones they had believed themselves to be parting from only temporarily. But it is a fleeting and dignified grief, rather than the initial outpouring of sorrow that occurred when people realized they must meet the end where they were, strangers in a strange land. Those that did not choose to die grew calm, understanding, as they must, that this severing was only a foreshadowing of the much greater severing looming over us all. There are many, of course, who do not understand what is happening. They are either too young or old, or like old Maria now in her primitive, efficient little cave of a kitchen with its coal stove, preparing dinner, too stubborn. Her refusal to leave her post means we have not wanted for good cooking, though it is Electra's parents and some of the other guests of the Olympus who have foraged for supplies. Maria accepts the offerings crossly, asking when old Mario will return to his deliveries, since he would ensure she had all the ingredients she needed. There are others who, while understanding and accepting, have chosen to go on as usual. There is a nurse at the local veterinarian clinic who, I am told, continues to treat animals, and there is a doctor at the hospital dispensing medications and euthanasia. There is a taxi driver who will take you anywhere upon the island so long as his supply of petrol holds out, and there is a woman who is making coffee in what was once a 4-star restaurant, though it is on the other side of the island. There is a man who gives a free cello concert in the main square of Stefano each night for anyone who wishes to come and hear him, and a painter who sits on a terrace making sketches from morning till night. These people have made the decision to go on doing their work, either because they have a genuine calling, or because they love what they do, or perhaps because it is their work that will give meaning to their existence, even in these final hours. There must be others too. This morning a plane went over, and everyone stopped and stared up in wonderment, for who would bother to pilot a plane now, on the eve of the end? Nor could it have been a single person, since it would take a crew to work the thing. It may be that even now there are things to connect us, and perhaps the connection is all the more profound, being necessarily ephemeral. I am told several other musicians have begun to come in the evenings to play with the cello man, and Electra said there is talk of a final concert for anyone who wishes to attend. She has made it her project to learn how as many people as possible will spend their last hours. Some evenings she comes to sit with me and reads what she has learned. We are witnesses of the end, she said, tapping my battered journal. For me, of course, the fact that I am old and have pancreatic cancer means the end of the world holds no great terror for me. I had already accepted the reality of my not too distant, specific personal death, so the idea of a more generalized extinction seems almost an elegant reprieve from what I fear would have been an ugly, painful death. Lacking regrets or fears, I have been removed enough to be, as Electra puts it, a witness. Like her, I have enjoyed making my notes for an article that will never be written. I had originally thought that what I would like most of all to do at the end would be to be editing an article about the end of the world, honing and perfecting syntax and meaning. I had thought to take a final walk up to the top of the hill to one of the ubiquitous little Orthodox blue-domed churches that sits up there and read my final notes through. But a foolish fall put an end to the ill-conceived plan. I am glad, for I wince a little at the image of myself inching up the steep path with my walking frame, white hair blowing in the wind. That is vanity, of course, and absurd. Yet it does seem to be an inescapable part of the human condition. I have a more humble plan now. I do not think the end will happen quite so fast and dramatically as was thought initially, nor do I think it will be an approach of darkness. I think non-existence will slowly converge upon us like the humidity that thickens some evenings until it coalesces into the strange mist that boils across the island in an endless, eerie, rushing white tide. I think non-existence will come like that from all sides, a beautiful, clammy tide of cloud that will isolate us first from one another, turning us each into little islands of existence, then will envelop and consume us. By my calculations, the end will come just before dusk this evening. I have been watching the vanishing of the stars, and the rate of disappearance is quite steady. Electra's father, an engineer, concurs that it will come at about the pace of a slow stroll. He intends that he and his wife will arrive an hour or so before the end, so that they may enjoy a final swim. When I see the outer Cyclades begin to go, I will go down to my bedroom and make a pot of tea on the primus I have been using. I will carry it up to the terrace to sit. I am hoping one of the little cats that Electra has been feeding and wooing will come and curl in my lap. Finding the girl absent, I will give it some milk in my saucer as an enticement. Electra is still lying on her terrace lounger, listening to her music. She has been swimming in the little infinity pool of the hotel next door, and she is quite alone, her parents having left this morning. They were initially distressed that Electra would not accompany them, but she told them decidedly that they must all do as they wanted, but that she wished to remain at home. They made her promise to come and sit with me at the very end, and she agreed. Of course, she has no intention of staying with me. It was merely that she did not want her parents to imagine her alone at the end, and they know she is fond of me in her cool way. She told me what she intended to do when she brought up some fruit her parents had foraged last night. She was not asking permission, of course. That would have been absurd under the circumstances, and in any case, she knows me well enough to know it would not be necessary. But she offered me a few sheets of paper, saying with innocent, off-handed egoism that I might like to read about all the ways that people told her they planned to meet the end. Hers was at the bottom. I read the last line and smiled up at her before I anchored the sheets under a lump of pumice, saying I would save them for later in the day. I asked if she would come and say goodbye before she left, and she nodded. She went a few steps and then glanced back over her smooth shoulder to tell me that she had discovered why the little Asian man had been rushing about. He had been looking for his wallet. His wallet, she marveled, shaking her head. At this point, everyone who accepts what is coming has decided how they will meet the end. Not the little Asian man whom I saw hurrying up the steps again this morning with the same anxious expression. Not the old, senile woman on the terrace below, tended to her by her wizened older sister. Not Maria, who is even now in her kitchen baking bread, as certain that the sun will rise on a tomorrow as she is that God exists. And truly it seemed to me that meeting the end in a warm, ancient kitchen scented with rising dough is as good a way as any. I think of Adolphine and the affection in her voice when she spoke of Grigori. It is my hope and belief that she and the boy will see out the extinguishing of life that will result from his response to her father's rage together. Perhaps they will sit on her porch swing, holding hands and drinking homemade lemonade until the end. The end matters, you see, how it is accomplished. And that's the end. So just to talk a little bit more about the story at the end. Of course, the villa that the old man is sitting in is the villa that I spent many years sitting on the terrace writing. and his imagined end is the end I would imagine, that I would wish for myself in that place. I thought of what I would like, and what my daughter, who is Electra in the story, said that she would like to do was to go up to the top of one of the hills and write a poem, and be writing a poem or a song when the end came. And I can imagine Electra, the girl, sitting there humming. One young man told me that he would ride his motorcycle off the cliff, and I had a funny thought that if I were writing this story and continuing, and I was telling it from Electra's point of view, it might be that at the end he would see her sitting there, and that they would end with a conversation rather than actually ending where they did. The mist that I talk about, that the end is coming, there's an incredible mist that goes across the island at night when the humidity is very high. The clouds literally coalesce into being as they rush across the sky. It's like some kind of amazing special effect to stand on a dark path and watch the clouds forming dramatically and swiftly over your head as they pass. And that's how the old man imagines the end coming. So that was the story. I'll be reading some other stories on my Patreon if you're happy to access through Patreon and not inside from the inside of the site. There'll be some more stories there for you, and at some point I might read something else. But as of now, for the next 2 weeks, I have to hunker down, and I've got to the pointy end of my PhD, and I need to finish and be done with it. So this is me saying goodbye. Hope you enjoyed the story.